I'm back. You're watching episode 3 of the Road to Freedom Moto vlog, and I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I am not going to do a story with a happy ending per se, although all these stories are actually 100% true, just so you know. No embellishment. These are things that have actually happened to me. I'm going to get in today to the struggle that's behind why I ride. So I am a little boy in the mid-70s in Kensington, Philadelphia, and I'm into motorcycles and muscle cars and a few other things. And the big thing for kids like me at that time, besides stickball, or some people call half ball, was mini bikes and go-karts. So mini bikes, which still exists, just basically like a tiny motorcycle with a lawnmower engine, were awesome, but those were for kids with a little bit of cash. I was not one of the kids with a little bit of cash. And by kids with a little bit of cash, of course, I'm referring to parents that would cough up a little bit of cash. And look, we got little Tiggs here. He's got like a Eurosport. You're gonna see that in this area because a lot of ways to just pull off into the woods when you go behind me for about 5 miles. So the other thing was go-karts. If you could find a street that had a small slant to it, you could build a go-kart and then get in it and just kind of push your cart down the hill. You know, you get in, your buddies would push you. He would be the person you were racing would be next to you. His buddies would push him, and you'd race down the hill basically, and then you'd have to trot this thing all the way back up the hill. It looks like it could be a Honda Africa. I don't know. It doesn't have a windshield. I don't know. Anyway, so that was like the jam. That's what we were into. Now, I want to explain something to you because we are very different than kids in today's world. So a lot of people aren't going to understand this. We were 5 to 8 year olds building go-karts. We built these. Sometimes there'd be a teenager that might chip in. But mostly it was us building them. And how did we build them? So here's how you build a go-kart in the 70s, at least. You take a milk crate, you saw one section out of it, and it's now a seat. You find a long, like 2x4, you nail the milk crate to the 2x4. Now your seat is sitting on your frame, and then you get two more. You get like, okay, another 2x4, for example. Cut it into thirds or cut it in half, this depending on how wide apart you want your wheels. And then half of that goes in the front, and half of that goes in the back. If you're really, really slick, the one in the back is just nailed into the main frame, and it's solid and doesn't move. But if you're really slick, you could figure out how to make the piece of wood that you've cut smaller that goes in the front. You could maybe just put like one larger nail, and then you could put rope on either end of it so that you can kind of pull on it and actually turn your go-kart. But that wasn't necessary because most of the time we're just going down a small hill. And by the way, there's not actually a ton of decent hills in the area where I'm talking about. So we were never really going too fast. The pushing part was highly necessary. And you didn't go too far, but for 5 to 8 year olds it was far. And then you have the wheels part. Now, one of the common things that we would do is big wheels, and the Green Machine later on in life were were a big part of the culture at the time. So that's what I'm trying to say. This is what kids were into, especially little boys. You know, so you're revving this trike, and then you turn the wheels super hard at top speed, which was all of like 3 miles per hour, but to you it was amazing. And you would, you know, do a 180 or a 360, and then you were the bomb. And we would wreck those things pretty fast because they're just made of plastic. And so we would take any parts from them that were even mildly usable, even for a you know, short period of time. Maybe we'd get a week worth of work out of this, and we would fix them to the go-kart frame in the back and the front. And of course, old bicycles, you could use their wheels and stuff if you could figure out, you know, how you're going to actually get them to stick, you know, or stay to the 2x4s and the or the smaller planks in the front and the back of the go-kart. So you basically had, like, this is your main 2x4 with your seat here, your milk carton, and then another one up here that maybe swiveled, and then a fixed one in the back underneath of the whole thing that didn't move at all, and then wheels, right? So I had just moved for, you know, into a new school for maybe like the 3rd time, and I was, you know, only in like 1st grade. But my mom, you know, and I moved all over the place because we were dirt poor. And I get to this new street that we're living on, this new apartment, you know, some roach hole, and all the kids are building go-karts. So I got to introduce myself and somehow get in on the fun. This is a rite of passage for these kids. When you're this age in 1975 in Kensington, Philadelphia, or, you know, wherever the heck, you know, my mom decided to move, you know, sometimes it was Fishtown, and this is like a rite of passage to be a part of the little boys that were playing. You had to love go-karts and get in on building it wasn't enough, I guess is my point, to just sit in one and go down the hill. You had to be a part of assembling from junk your own go-kart, and then, you know, the group that assembled the fastest one, well, they were the most awesome of all the dudes, and they had bragging rights. So I got to get in on this, and I was an extremely quiet child. I pretty much didn't speak. So this was a difficult scenario for me to introduce myself and, you know, and get in on this. So I kind of just hanging around these boys. I don't remember any of their names. I just remember it was a bunch of poor white kids in the slums of Philadelphia building a go-kart. And so I just kind of hung near them, eventually started pushing one of the go-karts, and then, you know, we started talking, and I didn't feel quite like I was accepted, and I needed a way to feel like I was a part of the go-kart gang. And I thought that I got lucky. So along comes Pat the Rat. Now, if you were in the Kensington Fishtown area in the mid-70s, you're going to know who Pat the Rat was, and then you're going to know, like, my story's legit. So Pat the Rat was a mentally disabled gentleman who pushed around this gigantic cart of junk and just kept throwing more in it. We never really knew as kids where what his route was, or did he have like a spot where he stopped and unloaded all his junk? But it was this gentleman was abnormally strong, because all he did was wheel his cart around everywhere in the city you would see him pushing this giant cart full of junk. And he treated all the kids really well, in that the kids would go run up and jump on the cart, and he would just keep pushing, and so it was like a free ride down the block before, you know, you got 5 or 6 blocks away, and you were like, okay, I don't want to run back that far, I'm going to get off now before this gets worse. I mean, we were allowed to go as far away from home as 5-year-olds as we wanted to, as long as we were in, by the time the lights went down, and as long as we weren't caught on the wrong side of town, by the time the lights went down, which was really just an ethnic thing. It's just basically, if you're white, you need to be in the white section by the time the lights went down, or at least that was the fear that your parents drilled into you. So I knew Pat really well. I was one of the kids that would hang all over his cart, and my mother had always told me, leave him alone, get off the cart, and never ever ever get in the cart, because you could get hurt, because there's a bunch of sharp objects in there. For all you know, a nail could poke out and stick you, and then you got to go to the hospital and get a needle. And so I didn't, for the most part, but that stuck in my mind. And if you're a parent, and please just don't tell your kids what not to do. Tell them what you want them to do, because literally everything that any adult ever told me not to do as a child, I did. I mean, to the point that it was absurd. If an adult would have told me, like, not to stick my hand in an electric socket, I probably would have done it just to spite them. So that was a side note. Back to the story. So here comes Pat the Rat coming down the street. Everybody's building their go-karts, and we were starting a second one. It was like my chance to get in on it and be a part of this rite of passage for 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds in Philadelphia, to build your own go-kart, or Kensington, Philadelphia, to be more specific. So here comes Pat the Rat down the street, and I then have this brilliant idea that Pat probably has several items in his cart that we could use, and I will be the guy. I'm the guy that's going to go in the cart, get the items, and we'll be able to build a second go-kart, and we'll be able to actually race their team. And which was a little bit silly, because there wasn't enough of us to even have 2 teams. There's only like 5 of us playing, but whatever. So we're going to have a team of 3 and a team of 2 or whatever. So I, of course, break the rule. Pat would never really tell you no. So I jump up onto the cart. Hey, Pat, I'm talking to Pat. I'm riding along, and I see the kids, and I see a huge, long, like 2x4 board, and I'm like, oh yeah, I am gonna be the man. Pat's the man right now, but I'm gonna be the man. So I, of course, jump into the cart to get the 2x4, to become the provider of champions in the go-kart creating world. And the second that I jump in the cart, a nail goes through the bottom of my Bobos. Just sticks right into my foot hard. My car would really like me to put air pressure in my tire. And I feel this pain in my foot. I gotta, I'm 6 years old or something. I don't have any sense of what you're supposed to do when you puncture your foot with a huge rusty nail. So I just know that I am in so much trouble if my mom finds out that I jumped in Pat's cart. That's all I care about. It's just, not getting a whooping when I get home, because I did what I wasn't supposed to do, and I got hurt. And so I pull the nail and the 2x4. I just basically pull my foot off the 2x4, and I get out, and I'm limping around, and I give the 2x4 I'm pulling the 2x4 out of the cart, basically, you know, but I'm trying to give it to the kids, and, you know, of course, Pat, he sees that I'm hurting because there's like blood on the ground every time I take a step, and so he scoops me up, sits me on the cart, scoops the 2x4 up, throws it back in, and tells me not to move. He's taking me home to my mommy. He knew where I lived. He would pass my house all the time. My mom would say hello to him, and when we were out on the stoop, and he carts me home, and I miss my chance to build go-karts, and I tell some lie. Pat doesn't tell my mom what I did. He just drops me off. I tell some lie about, oh, that was cool, little kit car, about my foot. My mom never even cleans it. I never go to the doctor for it. And I hobble around on my foot for a few days, and shortly after that, I am put into foster care for, I don't know, the second or third time. It winds up being the final time. From there on, I'm just basically raised in foster care, and I never get my opportunity to provide my piece of the go-kart, help put the go-kart together, help push my team who built our own go-kart down the hill, and I'm denied this rite of passage. I get to, well, I'm in several different foster homes. From there, I eventually wind up in a foster home in Mount Laurel, where I stay until I'm an adult. You know, the kids there, their parents have a little bit of money. They're not building their own go-karts. They don't play stickball because they actually have enough room to have an actual ball and not have to cut it in half. You know,